Naoka Ueno is not considered by many people not only one of the worst characters in A Silent Voice, but also one of the worst characters of all time in anime. And that is because of all the actions she did and all the things she said all throughout A Silent Voice. Now, of course, it's not surprising why so many people think like this, and me personally, while I do think that Naoka isn't a perfect human being and is somebody that I wouldn't want to be around in real life, I don't think she is by far the worst character in The Silent Voice, because there is another character that is probably even worse than Naoka. But with that being said, that's not to say that Naoka is 100% in the clear, because that is not the case. There are still many things that I don't agree with what she said and did, and there are clearly many moments in the series that unfortunately Naoka is a great representation of the many terrible sides that a person in real life can have. And that's what I'll be talking about in today's video. Also, before I forget, for those who are wondering why I'm going to use some manga panels in some certain scenes instead of using the clips from the movie, well, it's because of copyright. So unfortunately, due to copyright, there are some clips that I won't be able to show, and while that does suck, it's something that's unfortunately going to happen, considering that for whatever reason, certain clips from The Silent Voice get copyright claimed no matter what. So now that's out of the way, let's just begin. Naoka was introduced into the series very early on, as she was one of the girls that was responsible for the bullying that Shoko faced during her younger years, but it wasn't always like this. We would come to find out that Naoka's intentions weren't just to simply bully Shoko in the first place. You see, originally she did try to be helpful and did try to help Shoko out in many things that she was struggling with. But due to feeling pressured that she had to be responsible for Shoko, Naoka started to view Shoko as somebody of a burden, somebody that she just didn't want to deal with because it was just too much to take care of. So this is where she would end up starting to badmouth Shoko. But this wasn't the only reason why Naoka started to hate Shoko. There is another reason why Naoka didn't like Shoko at all, and it was because she believed that Shoko was one of her rivals for Shoya. You see, she witnessed Shoko cleaning off the mean comments from Shoya's desk. Because of this made Naoka believe that Shoko had some sort of feelings for Shoya. So in her head, she believed that she had to take down Shoko in order for her to be next to Shoya. But of course, this didn't go according to plan, as due to the relentless bullying that Shoko faced, she would of course have to be transferred out of the school. And then of course, this is the parts in the story where we see that everyone turned their backs at Shoya, as everyone made sure that Shoya was the only one that was responsible for the bullying of Shoko. Even though there were other people involved, in order to save their own skin, they decided to put all the blame towards Shoya, even Naoka herself, as she herself did not admit that she was part of the bullying and also was the one that made sure that Shoya took the blame for everything. Showing that while she did have some feelings for Shoya, she wasn't committed into being by his side till the very end. And then you fast forward later on into the story once they're all grown up and are in their teenage years. By some miracle or a huge coincidence, Shoya and Naoka are able to see each other once again. And while at first Naoka seems to be very glad to see Shoya once again, she's also very conflicted as well. It seems that until that moment she did a good job burying the past, but now seeing Shoya again, not only is she remembering all the things that happened in the past, but it was also a moment that reminded her why the relationship between her and Shoya went downhill. And of course, to make it even more shocking to her, once she sees Shoya and Shoko starting to get along, and it seems that Shoya is trying to become friends with Shoko, this of course makes her feelings of Shoya reignite once again. At first, Naoka believes that Shoya has some sort of ulterior motive to befriend Shoko, and goes back to her bad habits of teasing Shoko and making fun of her once again. But when Shoya shows that he clearly does not want any teasing or Naoka to make fun of her and actually defend Shoko, this is where it really starts to make Naoka realize that Shoya was being genuine. He genuinely does want to have a good relationship with Shoko, which of course for Naoka it just doesn't make sense for her. Why does Shoya want to befriend Shoko, the girl that he constantly bullied with? Why does he now want to form some sort of relationship with her? This is something that just doesn't sit right with Naoka. And it's in this moment that we get to see one of the struggles that Naoka is facing, and that is her accepting the fact that change is always going to happen. She can't understand why Shoya and Shoko are now being all friendly with each other, since that is something that never happened a few years back. But what she fails to realize, people can change from what they were in the past. Shoya can be a completely different person than what he was back in those years. He doesn't have to be the bully anymore. He can be his own person, and due to the many things that he had to deal with and all the struggles that he faced because of what happened with Shoko, it's very clear that Shoya wants to become a better person, and to make up for it, the first thing he wants to do is build a great relationship with Shoko, the girl that he used to bully, as he even went as far as to learn sign language in order to communicate with Shoko. And once Naoka sees all this, at first she believes that Shoya and Shoko are going out, but once Shoya clarifies that they're just friends, Naoka sees it as an opportunity to be with him once again. And one thing that she does is she tries to apologize to Shoya, but Shoya doesn't accept her apology, which of course leaves her by surprise. But this is just another example of Naoka not realizing that not only can people change, but their mindsets can also change throughout time. Shoya has every right not to accept her apology. I mean, if you think about it, this is the same person that not only did not have his back when he was in a very tough spot, but also threw him under the bus if it meant saving herself, and saving herself from responsibility of being the one that was also responsible for the bullying that Shoko faced. It seems that for Naoka, this is her trying to show that she's also changing in her own way, but at the same time she also contradicts this, but just showing us the personality that she truly has. While Naoka does tend to sometimes take consideration of other people's feelings, she also has a hard time being able to do it all the time. She oftentimes always says what she has in her mind and doesn't really hesitate on what she has to say, even if what she says may not be a good look for her. Like going back when she finds out about Shoko and Shoya's relationship, she just comes out and says how she can't believe that it's possible that Shoya, the guy that was considered a bully before, is trying to be friends with the girl that he used to bully. For her in this moment, she views it as a really bad joke that Shoya is trying to pull, clearly showing us that she doesn't really think before she says and just says whatever comes out of her mind, not realizing that this not only made her look not a great person, but it also just proved to Shoya how she hasn't really changed ever since the whole incident that happened in the past. But despite all this, Naoka still firmly believes that she still has the potential to be with Shoya. Like during the whole amusement park scene, we see that Shoya unfortunately encounters another person that he does not want to see, and this is a person that he considers a friend named Kazuki. When Shoya sees Kazuki once again, it's very clear that both of them do not really want to see each other, and Shoya is clearly not happy because this is just another moment of Shoya trying so hard not to rethink the past. And while Naoka tries to comfort him, she doesn't really do a good job at it because she uses this moment to tell Shoya that they are both the same person. They are both trying to make amends for what they did, but what she fails to realize is that the way they do it is two completely different ways. But while at the same time she may be saying that she is trying to change for the better, the actions she does with Shoko contradict that statement. It's very clear that Naoka still holds some resentment towards Shoko, not just because she once again considers Shoko to be a rival, but also because she can't fully understand Shoko. If you have watched the series, you would know that Shoko uses sign languages to communicate to not just the people around her, but to communicate in general. So because of this, Naoka has this belief that because Shoko isn't going to be able to communicate like your average person, she's not only going to ruin the dynamic of the other people and will lead to them having to suffer because of it. And she makes this thought very crystal clear during the amusement park moment in which we see Shoko and Naoka in a Ferris wheel ride, and this is where she lashes out, not realizing that this is something that Shoko has had in the back of her mind. She feels like she is causing other people to not only suffer because of the way she is. She clearly shows self-hatred and feels like she's becoming a burden for the other people, despite the other people showing that they do care and love her, she feels like eventually these people will grow tired of her, which only seems to anger Naoka because she doesn't seem to understand that this is how Shoko truly feels. She only views this as Shoko trying to have pity or make people feel bad, when in reality this is something that Shoko is struggling on the daily, which just makes it once again very crystal clear that Naoka is very inconsiderate of other people's feelings and emotions, and the only thing that she only seems to be worried about is herself and how she feels and how this can affect her. But very quickly will Naoka face reality during probably one of the most memorable moments in A Silent Voice, and that is the bridge scene in which we see Shoya reaching his breaking point and finally getting out of his chest what he has to say to the people that are around him. And while Naoka did have her own moment as well in this scene, in which she confronts Mickey for playing victim and not taking responsibility for her part in the bullying of Shoko as well, this is where Shoya intervenes, telling Naoka that she isn't perfect and that she has no right confronting someone about not taking responsibility when she didn't do that herself as well. Naoka may be somebody that doesn't care what comes out of her mouth and is aware that she isn't a great person. One thing that she never really seems to always consider is the fact that she herself isn't somebody that ever took responsibility for what she has done. Sure, she probably has reminded herself that she looked bad in that situation with the whole bullying, but she never really accepted her responsibility, because afterwards she just simply moved on with her life, whereas people like Shoya was constantly haunted by those actions and wasn't able to have a normal life because of that. Meanwhile, all these people around him were able to move on in their lives like nothing has happened, and other things couldn't get even more worse and show us how really terrible Naoka really is. When Shoko attempted to end her life and was saved by Shoya, but resulted in him being hospitalized because of it, this is where Naoka really shows us how she's still not a great person even after her constant claims that she's trying to be better. When she confronts Shoko, not only to make Shoko believe that she wasn't a victim in this situation, but also tries to prove her point of her belief that she just brings misery and suffering to the people that are around her, using Shoya's being in the hospital after saving Shoko as proof that whoever is around Shoko is only going to end up being in a very terrible state like Shoya was now in. Now, in this moment alone, it just further made people despise Naoka even more. Beforehand, people did not like her because of just her very terrible personality or because of her terrible mindset, but in this moment, there's two reasons why Naoka became the most hated character. Not only did she show no empathy or sympathy towards Shoko, somebody that literally tried to end their own life, but also using Shoya's being at the hospital because of what had happened as proof that her belief is accurate, that Shoko is somebody that shouldn't be around people, as she will be the one to negatively impact their lives. It's these moments alone that further prove that Naoka still was the same person as she was a few years back. Sure, she was fully aware of what kind of person she was, but that doesn't stop them from not being able to put personal feelings in the side and just worry about the current situation, and that is the well-being of Shoya and making sure that Shoko recovers from this whole ordeal. But that is something that Naoka is not able to do. And while Naoka in the very end is starting to realize that while Shoko and her don't have to always get along or like each other, she doesn't have to hate her entirely. She doesn't have to hold a grudge against her for no really good reason. And while Ueno may not be the most favorable character for a lot of people, her character is very realistic of a person that you will see in real life. There are people in the world that find change to be a very hard thing to do, and it's not easy for some people to change and become a different person. And she probably did want to change, but just simply couldn't find a reason to change. And all those moments where we see her saying that she's not a great person, you can tell that she's honestly being realistic and being truthful, that she herself believes that she is not a great person. It's like Naoka truly does hate herself and isn't just saying it for no reason. But while she may have these emotions and may have the mindset that she does want to become somebody different than what she was in the past, The many actions and the many things she says for us may not seem like she's trying to change at all, but once you carefully see her as a character, you start to realize that in her own way, this is her unique way of showing change. It may not seem like that, but for Naoka, this is her showing of change, which makes it all the more interesting to be part of her character. And how somebody can change may be shown differently depending on how that person views as them changing, and that is something that is also worth thinking about when you see what kind of character or person Naoka is or was trying to be. So overall, while Naoka isn't the perfect human being and is somebody that has character development that many people don't really view as character development, in my honest opinion, Naoka is still much more less infuriating than seeing Miki, a character who never faced reality, never realized that she wasn't a victim and that she was not somebody that was forced into doing the action she did towards Shoko. I can safely say that Naoka is a much more better character than she will ever be. And that's where I'm going to end the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.